Hey everybody, how you doing? Did we give Ryza Man the self-cooking drill? I... The what? Wait. Okay, self-cooking drill. To clarify, is that a drill that cooks you when you activate it, or is that a drill that cooks itself when you activate it? I feel like that's a very vital differentiation to make. Oh, the combat drill on Atlas. Ah, that one. Wait, hang on. The self-cooking drill. Can you tell me, like, can you give me some more details on that equipment? I actually have a Lancer mech that is a heat-dependent, like a heat-heavy build. So I am interested in the idea of something that can generate heat, but also generate a lot of damage. As a matter of academic interest, of course. But yeah, tomorrow is the 4th anniversary of when I'll have started activities as a streamer. It says overkill, so any one on a damage number gets re-rolled. Ah, and that gives you 1 heat. Ah. I see. God, that is such a funny... You need to do a lot of... And it has a special secondary effect. Okay, go on. I'm going to start sketching this out while you talk. Okay. Yeah, so it's gonna be my 4th anniversary tomorrow, and I'm going to try and do a quick little bit of art to commemorate that. I am supposedly somebody known for his speed, and the main 2 things that I want are like the balloons that are, of course, which of course signify birthday and anniversary things. When you use it against a crowd-controlled enemy, every overkill proc adds 1d6 of damage. Now that seems like a bit much. I am no expert on game designer. Yeah, no, it sounds like it can get out. It can like, pardon the pun, or maybe don't if you don't like them. It sounds like the drill can rotate out of control very quickly, or wait, no, spin out of control. Oh, 3d6 melee, 1d6 electric. Okay, that's right. I see. I'm seeing more of the issue now. I believe I understand. Melee apocalypse. Hang on. CompCon. Search a compendium. Drill. Combat. Oh, okay, yeah, no, here it is. Compendium combat drill. When attacking equipment effect, when attacking a character that is prone, immobilized, or stunned, this weapon's overkill tag does extra 1d6 bonus damage each time it activates. This can activate indefinitely if the new bonus die result is a 1, triggering overkill again. Oh, this is from the Vlad. That explains so much. The Vlad is like... Okay, so not to stereotype anybody, but I feel like the Vlad is such a serial killer coded mech. Like, listen, of course you don't want to be in the same room as the guy that has, like, a, say, Sherman, right? Well, no, the Sherman's the laser one, right? Which one's the fire one from, whatchamacallit? Hang on, frames. Yeah, you don't want to be on the same team as the guy who has a Genghis. You don't want to be on the same team as the guy who has the Balor. You don't want to be on the same team as the guy who has the Caliban. But you absolutely don't want to be on the same team as the guy who's piloting this fucking thing. Like, all right, that's like... Imagine if, like, all the red flags of a car with a Punisher logo could be translated into, like, pain capacity. Maximum damage potential equals infinite. Yeah, and you just keep accumulating heat. Let's take a look at the flavor and text on this sucker, shall we? The combat drill is a brutal close combat weapon, powered by a massive external catalyst pack. The bit is tipped with microplasmatic projectors designed to pre-treat the target and ensure drill penetration. So this thing cooks you in before you stick it in anybody. Microplasmatic projectors. Holy shit. On the other hand, right, that means you could probably very easily mod the combat drill to be essentially like one of those like laser projectors that you see sometimes at parties. At least Balor and Genghis have friendly fire. That is an interesting... Okay, that is an interesting point of view. Does the capacity for friendly fire make you more threatening or less threatening in terms of like the people you want to squad up with? Because I feel like it's a little bit of a middle ground. It's a beige flag for me, right? Because the thing is, of course you can get hurt by the person who is doing the friendly fire, but that also means that they're aware of it, right? I feel like to some extent you have to be aware. And, you know, if you're an asshole, it's more like it's easier to understand when it's an accident and like when they're doing it on purpose. Because the first couple of times you get friendly fire, it's like, yo, hey, watch the friendly fire. Hey, yeah. You know, it's all chuckles. You know, you don't appreciate it necessarily, but you can laugh it off. Everybody makes mistakes every once in a while. Fourth or fifth time, now you're like posting a job vacancy because, you know, that's like a liability at that point. You don't want to be on the team with the person who intentionally or otherwise, especially not intentionally, has like issues containing friendly fire. But yeah, that's more of a beige flag because then you can also tell when the pilot is a red flag. Does the Ballad have anything that induces friendly fire? That's actually a good question. It's been a while since I've looked at what the Ballad can do. I usually just look at the frames from the point of view of almost assigning them to my characters. So I kind of forget what... Okay, you can attack all characters in a line between you and your target. You take 1 heat for each target past the first. Huh. Okay. Webjaw Snare. Expend a charge to deploy a Webjaw Snare to a free adjacent space where it arms at the end of your turn. Suitable for use in any theater, the IPSN Webjaw Explosively Accelerated Filament System, EAF, WEF, is a deployable perimeter defense solution designed to arrest hostile movement in predetermined kill corridors. That's not a fun combination of words. The Webjaw consists of a networked cluster of single-use anchors, okay, each consisting of a barb, a coil of arachnosynth, no-cut filament, and an explosive charge. So caltrop net, okay, so it's a net made of caltrops that can explode. When triggered remotely or by a series of programmable physical, electronic, or chemical triggers, the anchors fire, embedding barbs deep inside targets, whether soft or hard. The barbs, secured to anchor points by a no-cut filament, clog and restrict movement, fouling gears, wheels, rotors, engines, and all methods of locomotion. IPSN, why did you make a mech that can do that? There are no pirates that you should be worried about where that is necessary. Okay, impale or nail gun. That's also that's also a fun phrase. Target must succeed on a hull save or become immobilized until the end of their next turn. Heat oneself. Very scary. The Impaler's non-combustible, sabot-jacketed two-stage macro flechettes can pierce even the heaviest armor. Once catapulted from its launcher, the sabot disengages on approach to its target and triggers a second stage. Internal propulsion drives the macro flechette forward with incredible velocity. Overpenetration is certain against soft targets. IPSN advises firing this weapon only when the area behind the target is clear of allies or non-combatants. Hey, IPSN, why'd you make a weapon that could do that? Like, everybody talks about how the Caliban... Like, okay, so to give you an idea of how fucked up the Caliban is, the punctuating sentence, the closer on its like lore blurb is, it is a tool designed to kill human beings very, very quickly. That is somehow less fucked up than some of the things that the Vlad's got on it. Side note, these all help with the combat roll? In what way? Oh, prone, immobilized, or stunned. Ya entiendo, ya entiendo. All right. And also just caltrop launchers. This one seems almost benign compared to the fucking webjaw snare. Wicked wicked, downright villainous anti-organic anti-vehicle systems for proximity denial. Caltrop launchers fire either great clouds, cool, or long sways, cool, of shimmering metal over an area. IPSN's HX Cal caltrop system includes small shaped explosives in the mix of hardened pyramids. What the fuck? Caliban is on purpose. The Vlad is the Vlad. Yeah. I think that, like, the thing is, the Caliban is like a very kind of lab grown GMO kind of fucked up in the head, right? Like, this is very much everybody in the room being in like doing like a mind map, right, of different ways to hurt people and calculating the most cost-effective way to do it. The Vlad is just some other fucked up shit that people kind of just, that was like almost off the dome kind of insane. Why did you do that? The Vlad is the second iteration of IPSN's legacy Yisenshin model, first made famous by Albatross pilots in the Celestine campaign during the fall of the Second Committee. You don't need to know what all that means. With the wealth and quality of data generated by the Albatross in that conflict, IPSN produced the Vlad, a power plant and frame upgraded spiritual successor to the Yisenshin and deserving of a new line designation. The Vlad, as did the Sun before it, shares much of its design philosophy and ancestry with IPSN's early asteroid mining frames. Many of its star-knit armaments take inspiration from the early efforts of resourceful miners to convert tools into improvised anti-piracy weapons. Likewise, its frame emphasizes redundancy, toughness, and component universality, allowing it to operate with outstanding self-sufficiency for long and/or dangerous deployments. Heavily armored, the Vlad suit is a frontline role where it can absorb fire from dangerous targets while lining up the perfect shot. That's almost scarier, right? The fact that nobody talks about how fucking they have a onboard core system called Shrike Armor, as in the bird that sticks things on branches to eat them later. It has an active one called Tormentor Spines, and nobody thought like maybe we're doing a bit much. Also, I am noticing that. Hang on, what is that? This is a frame that can handle cooking itself for 10 heat in a single attack. I'll believe it. Hang on, which one? The Atlas isn't. That's also true. Hang on, where is... Oh, here we go. Okay, so I updated OBS today, and I think that broke my closed captions function. So I do think I'm just going to take that away for the time being. It's going to be less confusing if I just take that down. But yeah, God. Wait, how much is its heat capacity? 6! Okay, yeah, no, that's... Okay, because, like, I have... My guy... Okay, so I have a Genghis, right, that I've been working on. And the Genghis's heat capacity is 10. That has, like, great synergy with a lot of what the Vlad does. The only problem that I can think of is the fact that the Vlad probably has... Yeah, it's got like a flex mount, a main mount, and a heavy mount. I think the Genghis only has 2 main mounts, I believe? Or a flex mount. Okay, no, it has the same number of mounts, so what the hell? Also, I'm kind of putting together the pieces in my head of how you made that Atlas. Because the thing is, the Atlas only has a flex mount and a main mount. I don't know anything about Lancer, but I love hearing about the mechs. I know a little bit about the Lancer, and I adore hearing about the mechs. This is how I got exposed to Lancer, is just going frame by frame and like reading up on their lore, and it's so cool. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, no, stress 4, heat capacity 4, structure 4. You took 2... God, okay. But yeah, heat capacity 4. Yeah, no, that's... That explains how you got the two stress damage so easily. I think you can get a super heavy mount. You need a core bonus that says +1 super heavy if you have 3 or less. Yeah, I remember that. I think that is a GMS core bonus. I think. Let me see. If your mech has fewer than 3 mounts, excluding integrating mounts, it gains an additional flexible mount. Or you can replace one mount with a main or aux mount. There's a couple of ways. Heavy mount, maybe? I don't remember how they work exactly. Yeah, no. I think for super heavy weapons, it's one. It has like a main mount, and it also needs a heavy mount. Yeah, 10 out of 16 possible heat immediately. God, that is pretty funny. All right, back to work though. Back to work. What the hell? Got upgraded to the chair? Hi, Ryan. Thank you for noticing. I've actually, yeah. Check this out. I can like move around a little bit too now. I recently, as in just today, switched over from PNG Tuber Plus to PNG Tube Remix, and it's it is decent. I don't really prefer it over the other one, but I do have an easier time doing like mouse tracking with this one. If I recall correctly, Heavy can still take the drill. You know what? In that case, then yeah, that makes a lot of sense. God, Lancer is so cool. Oh yeah, how you doing, Ryan? What have you been up to today? I might actually... First of all, let me lower the opacity on a couple of these references. But yeah. No, I saw some office near my house that was closing down, and I took the opportunity to nab a couple of Herman Millers. Gonna try some manga practice? Ooh, nice. Right, I think you said you were... Did you... I don't know if this is supposed to be under wraps. Weren't you planning on trying out for the... For like a Shonen Jump manga a trial or event? I remember you sharing some of the concept of art with that. That one really ruled. I was trying to make some pitches for the Viz one-shots. Right. That was super exciting. Back when I used Metabang Paint Pro, that was one of the most exciting parts about it. Is that CSP does also have those, right? I just want to make a completed page first. That sounds like a plan. Yeah, no. Back when I used Metabang Paint Pro, which is a drawing application that is completely free and fairly powerful for what it is, if you ever have an interest in trying out visual arts, I recommend using that one as like a starting point because it has a lot of the functions, not every function, but a lot of the functions and kind of tools and styles that other apps like Clip Studio and Paint and Photoshop use. I do recommend it. Trying to figure out what position to put my hand in here. But yeah, I brought up Metabang Paint Pro because for whatever reason, they have a lot of contests going on at any particular time. I remember that during one of the summers that I had off of high school, there was one where they were doing like character design contests for a what appeared to be like some kind of futuristic sword thingy, or it looked kind of interesting. I don't have the character concept from back then on hand, but I do remember I recycled it into a different character. This hand looks fucked. Let's retry those fingers. I do love the expression on the guy behind my thumb here. I don't know, there's something very peaceful about the way that his eyes look. Not particularly alert, but not particularly bored either. Kind of just at rest. But you know, Lancer builds are a little bit difficult because the thing is, like, you can start doing some major league fucked up things at license level 6 or so. But the thing is, by that, like, that is like fairly far into a character is the thing. There are still fucked up things you can do at lower license levels, of course, but you know the real fun starts like later on in when you have more options, so it's a little bit more difficult to kind of make characters and be like, oh boy, this one has so much potential, because by the time you have your perfect mech in mind, you're already at like license level 12, and it's like, okay, well, you're not exactly going to be able to grow, little guy. I don't know. There is a little bit of conflict, right? Because of course you want characters to have progression mechanics, I imagine. I've never designed a game before, by the way. I am an absolute amateur when it comes to... Not even an amateur. I am completely naive when it comes to things like game design, and I'm even more naive when it comes to tabletop game design. So I do recognize that I might not be qualified to speak on this, but I do think there is a... It feels like there is a conflict between being able to let the players do cool shit kind of off the rip, which of course you still can do, right? But like at the same time, it's less flexible, but you still want that sense of progression. I don't know. I imagine it's a very challenging thing for game designers. That is the one thing that always trips me up, is like the idea of progression, because I feel like it's a very holistic thing that takes into account a lot of factors, which is also why a lot of it probably feels like it's also the easiest to screw up, right? When sometimes you see a game review and it's like, you know, there's very limited sense of progression, or you know, there's another one that says like, oh, they have a great sense of progression, or I never felt like I wasn't challenged by the gameplay, you know, and then it's like that's probably a sweet spot of some kind. Okay, then over here. I should probably start checking out other whatchamacallits, other tabletop games by Abaddon, because I do think Kane is probably my jam, since it is urban fantasy. You know what? I'm overthinking this hand. Let's just make it mirror the other one. And now we just have to stretch out this part. Very nice. But yeah, Ryan, what are you? Okay, so for the completed, okay, so for the pitches that you're working on, right? What are you cooking precisely? If you don't mind sharing, if you want to keep it under wraps, I totally understand. But I would love to know what you've kind of got on the grill here, while it's still sizzling. Okay, then over here and over there. But yeah, the one that I am also interested in checking out, but not as much, is probably Malagast, Because I know that Malagas is also another Abaddon joint. For One Pitch, it's a short metal hero story, nothing crazy. Oh, right, I think I remember you telling us about that in one of the PMP sessions. God, that one was so cool. For the page, I'm just drawing random shit with my characters just to see how things look. Ah, study. Very nice. That's something that I've been meaning to do more frequently, actually, is drawing fan art for that, the main thing is I have trouble knowing what to shade and how to do with cross-hatching and halftones. Oh, yeah, I imagine that's a toughie. Yeah, now halftones are like a whole different ballgame. Even if you understand how Clip Studio's halftoning function works, they can be really difficult to manage just because of how stubborn isn't even the right word. How quirky they can be. Quirky might not be the right word either, but it's closer. They ain't too bad because I can just mess around with grayscale, but I want to use them sparingly. I totally get you. There was something that I noticed, right, about when I was reading through older chapters of One Piece and Dragon Ball, and comparing them to some of the comics that I've seen in other magazines and such, and from other time periods. Dragon Ball and One Piece make very rare use of grayscale, or rather halftones. Somehow they manage to do a lot of what they do with cross-hatching and just placement of lines. It's really badass. Although I guess to some extent, right, it is probably also a mix of factors, because I do remember I don't know if everybody's heard the story before, right? But maybe you're one of today's lucky 10,000. The reason that Goku becomes blonde in Super Saiyan is because they wanted to save time on shading the pages, right? On inking the pages. So by making Goku's hair like a lighter color, they no longer had to fill it in with black ink whenever they were drawing it. And that saved a lot of time because Goku's hair is huge. The actual process of using halftones physically on paper is a total bitch, which is why it wasn't used as much before digital. That also makes complete sense. I have tried to use rub-off halftones, right? Hang on, I think I have it in my desk drawer, right? I think it's somewhere here. If I don't find it in 10 seconds, I'm gonna give up. Nope, here it is. So, graph it transfer. Rub on screen tone. I try to use this I'm sure perfectly fine product for a quick little doodle on one of my sketchbooks, and it was like pulling teeth. From what I understand, halftone is almost like a sticker in normal circumstances, where you have to cut it precisely over the paper and then use a knife to scrape it away. I learned that. That's what I understood from fucking Monthly Girls Nosaki-kun, is that's the process for using halftone. So it makes sense why a lot of people didn't like using it. Although I imagine there were specialists and such back in the day. Oh. Robot detected. Hang on. Privy Dipper V. Get out of here. Shoo! Best viewers on stream boo my ass. I feel like there has to be a stronger word for this than ban. I don't know, I feel like I need to... I don't know, like, whenever that happens, I feel like doing the speech from Ultra Kill where it's like, machine Turn back now. The halls of this sacred place are not for your kind. But I can never fucking... But I can't remember the words to the speech. And also, Gabriel's kind of a weenie, so I don't want to emulate him. Mod season! That'd be great, but I don't really have a lot of active mods. I don't really need them because I'm not... I'm not a particularly security vulnerable person. I guess that might be the best way to say it. It's the nicest way I can think of to say that I don't have enough viewers for that to be an active problem. Like, from what I remember, I've only ever had, like, one person intentionally try and cause some trouble. And I think I banned them on, like... I banned them, and, you know, sometimes I still think about it, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? They had it coming. I have so many filters on all my mod channels. That's also a pretty good way to patch up your security, I imagine. I don't know, it is difficult because sometimes I do want somebody to say like a cuss word, like a specific cuss word, but they won't be permitted because Twitch is a baby. But other times people will just say some random shit and I'll be like, whoa, you can't be saying that. Why didn't Twitch stop you? The fuck? God, I'm just remembering that one meme that's like, you can't be talking like that, white baby. I don't know. I feel that in my soul a lot of the days, but it's not necessarily that it's like a white baby thing. I do think it is just sometimes you shouldn't be talking like that. Well, I'm sure that's always the way it's been. God, I do think it's gonna be pretty funny. Hang on. So like, we'll have a look out ribbon here. Like I said, many filters. God. I was watching the whatchamacallit, the retrospective. So, hang on. Let me see if I can get the channel for this correct. Yep. Okay, so there is this YouTube channel called Modular, which is spelled like this. And they have been doing a retrospective on the Ultima series that I haven't had a chance to really revisit that series since I watched some videos on them during my teenage years. During the times of my innocence, relative innocence. And they're great because they go into really, really deep detail into the development process, and in the middle of the latest video right now, it's a treat, and it's also 3 hours long, which is insane to me. And it's also much more critical than the one that I remember watching as a teenager, which I guess might be because like there's not as much of a nostalgia filter on it. But yeah, I don't know, it is fascinating to just learn about the background stuff like that. And the fun thing that I remember from the latest video is the fact that in one of the older Ultima games, they actually had Electronic Arts as a cuss word. It didn't make it to the final build of the game, but there was like a snapshot of the game in development where Electronic Arts was used as a cuss word. God, it's so bizarre, just the kind of villain heel turn story that EA has had, even like months into its inception is the thing. Like, we all knew EA was evil. We've known for years, right? But like the fact that it started out with such idealistic beginnings and almost immediately pivoted into becoming almost like a prototype of what it does today is just baffling. Like, they didn't even last like 3 years before they turned evil. I don't know. There's something inherently evil about its name, I reckon. They do say that names have power. So maybe it is a matter of karma that they just became like that over time. Oh, how you can't name a character Todd Howard in recent games? Is that a thing? Hang on. Can't name character Todd Howard. Please, God, tell me that's real. Okay, no, it's only talking about the Fallout 4 thing where Codsworth can call your name if you have like a specific name attached. Which is a fun, quirky little thing that literally never comes up again in any other part of the game. I don't know. There's something that was brought up in the the retrospective video this time as well, which is that, you know, and this is obvious for a lot of people. Game reviewers don't have a lot of time to play the games they review. They just do not, and sometimes you can really tell they don't have that time. And it does feel like a lot of the reasons that Fallout 4 front-loaded a lot of these cool, funny little things into its game engine, such as the whole thing where like Codsworth can call you your name, is just so that it's one of the parts that the game reviewer is exposed to. And that way... like, the game reviewer is like, wow, this is so cool. I wonder if it'll be relevant in any other part of the game. And, you know, it isn't. It's never brought up again except whenever you talk to the robot. But, you know, they are filled with that wonderment, that sense of wonder. Might have been Elder Scrolls Online. Hang on. Why do people hate Todd Howard so much? r/Elder Scrolls. I'm not sure. I'm not finding any information. I can neither confirm nor deny the Elder Scrolls Online allegations. God, what actually happens in the Elder Scrolls Online? It's gonna be crazy when people finally end up playing Elder Scrolls 6, you know, assuming that's ever a thing that comes out in the next 10 years, right? Let's say that the Elder Scrolls 6 actually does come out. What do we do if there's a wealth of information that was from Elder Scrolls Online that they just assume you to know? It's like how in Destiny 2 they assume that you know about everything in the kind of lore of that game. And they even have video summaries of the different chapters to tell you about it. At least I think they have summaries. I'm pretty sure they do. I remember somewhere they had like a pass for new Destiny 2 players where you could level up quickly and skip the main story to just go to the newest content expansions. If I ever see the post again and remember this conversation, I will let you know. You know, I do think that is probably a post on I feel like that is a very did you know gaming post. If that makes sense. I've used to love Did You Know Gaming. I loved it because it had a lot of secret Easter egg stuff, but now it underwent what I like to call the MatPatification effect, where it started off as a fairly informative, if benign, resource, but now it's all story shit that is very obvious, and they frame it as if it's like a world-shattering revelation, which, to be fair, given the lack of reading comprehension that the northern hemisphere possesses, it's entirely possible that that's entirely warranted. But you know. Okay, is there anything else we need to add to this? No, I think we're good. I think we can add some confetti afterwards and we'll be ready to go. I don't know. I feel like the Elder Scrolls Online can't be a real game. I feel like they're fucking with us, saying that it's a real game when it actually isn't. I don't believe the Elder Scrolls Online exists. I think it's like Bigfoot. It's a post with someone naming their character Hot Hour and getting an in-game response like, "We don't use that kind of language," like it was a swear. Hang on. You should make one of those balloons look like a rice beast. You know what? Maybe I should. Perhaps we can have a little bit of an indulgence. Hang on. Yeah, no, I'm not getting anything there. I've played Elder Scrolls Online. I cannot tell you what happened in it. Right? It's like it's like water through a sieve. It's such an immaterial beast. An immaterial substance. It's like a gaseous. It's like if a gas could be a game. But yeah, perhaps we have a singular rice beast indulgence. You know what? Actually, what I think might be funnier, hang on, is if we have... Hang on. Rice beast just like floating off into the air over here. Actually, we can include a couple of the other characters from the in-house lore. That tail is humongous. I picked Khajiit and had trouble with the stealth and pocket skill implementation? God. It reminds me a little bit of how they accidentally made Stealth Archer super busted in Skyrim. I don't know if that's also the case in some of the other Elder Scrolls game. I don't have enough experience in that particular wheelhouse to comment on whether Stealth Archer is busted or not in the other ones. Because I remember I saw Zed playing through Daggerfall. I saw Zed playing through a little bit of Daggerfall, and it seemed like the sneak function was pretty useless there. I'm guessing starting from Oblivion, it was probably pretty good, because I think like the Oblivion engine was kind of the skeleton, the kind of paleontological basis for Skyrim's engine. It's like it's in terms of cladistics, it's like its nearest ancestor. They didn't have a skill set for only one-handed weapon, so you either had to do it full Miyamoto Musashi style, or else you didn't get like a specific skill. Okay, sword and shield, got a skill. Dual wielding, got a skill. One-handed, go fuck yourself. God. That is really funny too. I don't know. That's actually crazy though, because I feel like the very popular playing style, or at least how I played it back in my days of naivete, was that I just had magic in one hand and a sword in the other, doing some spell blade shit. On my spell sword shit for real. I feel like we don't get as many spell swords nowadays. Like, we do have people who use both magic and sword fighting, but you don't call them spell swords. You have to call them some shit like red mages or blade singers or whatever. It's so bogus. I don't know. Time was you couldn't have a single character who didn't have at least a little bit of sword or a little bit of magic or a little bit of both. Holding one-handed sword, you get no experience. Explode. That's so funny and also inappropriate though, because on the one hand, so I am a martial arts guy, right? I am a martial arts merchant. I am a martial arts mark. I'm the guy that talks about martial arts a lot of the time. If somebody has life problems, 9 times out of 10, my answer will involve, to some degree, martial arts or telling them to practice martial arts. That or ancient Chinese systems of philosophy. I don't know how Spellblade stuff works. I didn't get into magic stuff in Elder Scrolls Online. That seems like a wise decision. I don't know. I feel like that's a smart move, all things considered. Also, what I should do is I should make a balloon base and then just have it spread out a couple of times. I put like 3 hours into the game with just one dagger and got no experience. Terribly confused. Woof. Despite all that, daggers are one of the most classic things to dual wield. I do feel like if you got a dagger, chances are at some point you'll be asked to pick up a second one. I need to go back to my martial arts stuff. I do enjoy it greatly. I haven't been able to talk myself into practicing a martial art ever since COVID hit. I do want to maintain my training, though. I do feel like I have been slacking off in general in exercising. Now, granted, right now I'm dealing with plantar fasciitis, so it's not like I can go outside and, challenge the local grandmaster even if I wanted to. But I don't know. It just feels nice feeling in control of your body. That's why a lot of people take up dancing, even. I should also start watching more martial arts movies again. I don't know. I've thought about making it a New Year's resolution that I should try to watch at least a movie a week next year. Really, really give that time to myself to experience a medium. Because I'm not a particularly big movie guy, but I feel like even I can become a halfway decent movie guy if I watch 52 movies in a year. Or, one movie every 2 weeks. Anything. Because I try to become a book guy, and I can read, obviously. I should hope that it's obvious that I can read. I love reading Wikipedia articles. But it's also... I've also noticed that a lot of the books that interest me nowadays are more kind of either skill or history books, sort of, in a little bit, in a sense. Working on footwork is so good. I do imagine it feels pretty great. The other day I saw, there's this guy I follow called the Bioneer, who does a lot of different exercise plans and has a lot of videos that talk about, maximizing your exercise, what useful strength looks like. It's a lot of that sort of merchantry. It's a really good channel, though. He has a very even tone of voice. For me, an issue that I get into sometimes is that I can't stand some channels' voices. Like, even if they talk about things that are interesting to me or that I want to hear about, if they have a specific voice that I don't like or don't really enjoy, it becomes a lot more difficult to relate to what they're saying. You read the entirety of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and nothing felt the same ever since. I get it. I haven't actually read any... I still need to finish reading the Book of Swindles. I haven't finished that one yet. That's gonna be my goal before the end of the year, is finish the Book of Swindles. You know what? Hang on. I've got to check on something real quick. I wish there was actually a sort of Dracula Daily, but for Romance of the Three Kingdoms. But the problem is that the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is far, far larger than Dracula. Okay, I see. I had to take a quick peek at the flag of Ecuador to remember how many spikes it had. I've been reading the Murderbot books lately. How is that? I feel like I've heard about that series a couple of times, and of course, all good things. But I don't understand precisely what it's about. The title is pretty self-explanatory, but not entirely. Actually, hang on. I got an idea. Accidentally finish them in a sitting every single time. But that's a good problem to have, though. I kind of miss that sort of voracious reading thing. Like, afterwards, you feel like you've ran a marathon a little bit, right? There's a Whale Weekly for Moby Dick. It takes 3 years, if I recall correctly. Awesome. I love that. Okay, yeah, this looks like it should work. Whale Weekly. That sounds like the kind of gag magazine. You know how in certain TV shows they'll show like the characters reading specific magazines that are really relevant to their interests, and like the mechanic will have Deals on Wheels Weekly, or the plumber will have Pipes Monthly. Whale Weekly feels like it's like it'd be part of that, but I don't know any series or cartoon series that it feature whaling in a forefront, except maybe that one Adventures of Flapjack one, but I don't think that one's been off the air for some time, and I didn't even watch it while it was airing. Murderbot good. It's about a non-human person, the Murderbot, who is a rogue AI, but mostly just wants to watch TV shows and do its job. God. It must be kind of stressful being a quote-unquote rogue AI, but also being pretty chill with it, right? Like every single time, like you meet another rogue AI, and they're like, one that is like me. Wait, I mean, one that is like me. Certainly, you too wish to see the end of humanity. And you're just like putting popcorn against your faceplate, not even chewing it, flipping the channel to Power Rangers or some shit, and being like, I mean, not really, not interested in all that. That's not for me. Whale Weekly Substack. How about that? Over 17,000 subscribers. That's crazy. But yeah, it is really funny. You don't get to see that a lot, because I feel like in a lot of stories, whenever it's like rogue this or rogue that, unless like the rogue thing in question is like a love interest, it doesn't really get explored if, and this is for various reasons. It is, of course, partially so that the character has something to fight, that the reader doesn't need to feel guilty about being killed, right? So like like Orc City, y'all remember Orc City, how that was a meme for all of like a week, and then it was never spoken of again, thankfully, because I didn't think it was very funny. But like Orc City is like, they had orcs, and apparently the orcs were a problem, so they burned Orc City to the ground, and they never really discuss what. From my impressions of the book, they never really discussed what the orcs did exactly to deserve this. They just did it. Which could be taken a lot of different ways, right? You can interpret that in a few different ways, but ultimately it does serve the purpose of having a guilt-free enemy for the main characters to fight. It has opinions on movies and doesn't like dealing with its own emotions. This low-key happens to my buddy Denji Hayakawa. This low-key happened to my buddy Denji's Chainsaw Man once. Chainsaw Man is one of the greatest series ever made. I read the newest chapter today. I forgot there was a new chapter coming out today, but everybody was kind enough to remind me. God, it is so funny though. Imagine if like you have this huge national concern about presumably it's like a matter of national concern. This is fucked up. You can't use his last name like that. My bad, my bad, my bad. Yeah, it felt wrong saying it. Like I was supposed to say Denji Chainsaw Man, but then I forgot Chainsaw Man was like the whole like character name last name series name thing. So I actually defaulted to his actual goddamn name, and it just felt so wrong. Like that felt like it took the joke out of the whole sentence. Like you say Denji, I know immediately who you're talking about, but you add Hayakawa to that, I was like, who the fuck is that? The crazy part, did they actually confirm that Denji took Aki's last name? Hang on. Hang on. No, I don't think Denji ended up taking... Okay, that's crazy. I feel like people just call him that, and nobody really questions it. But like, they don't actually refer to him as such in the in the manga. Oh god, that's pretty funny. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not on a full name basis with the Chainsaw Man guy. Okay, here we go. It's almost like it's almost like the opposite of the Perry the Platypus situation, right? Where if you say Perry the Platypus, you immediately know who is being referred to. But sometimes you just say Perry, and that could be anybody. that like there are only so many characters named Perry because it is kind of a nothing burger of a name. My apologies to the Perrys of this world. Not include explicitly accepting the apology to the guy who ended isolation into Japan. I feel like that guy set in motion some crazy shit that he wasn't aware of. But you know, if it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else. So I can't really blame him for all that. Open the country. Stop having it be closed. A platypus? That's right. If you talk about a platypus, people might think of Perry, but if you talk about Perry, no platypus, right? Perry, no modifier, no modifier Perry. People will be like, who's Perry? And then you send them the emoji of a hat, and it's like Perry the platypus, or Perry the platypus. You know, you have to change up the intonation because the platypus isn't the part that was shocking this time around. Okay, we need to slightly adjust the angle on some of this. Okay, and then over here. Oh, that's not thick enough for my fingers. Hang on. But yeah, I was gonna say though, imagine you follow somebody on Letterboxd, right? You know, I don't have a Letterboxd, but imagine you do follow somebody's reviews on Letterboxd. And you know, they're a little bit abrasive sometimes, but you know, they have good taste. They very you watch a lot of the movies that they watch, you know, you try to like see what they're up to. And a lot of cases you agree with their assessment. They're very insightful about what what the substance of movies is about and are able to very accurately say, yeah, no, this is a good one, you should watch it, and you trust their judgment. And later on, you have like the opportunity to meet up with them, and it turns out that they're like a rogue AI. That's like the setup to a light novel. God, I remember seeing an advertisement for this manga the other day, right? It was very typical, like... Okay, so here's the thing, right? Occasionally, romance as a genre is looked down upon because, like, it's occasionally, like, very emotional. Occasionally it is... people write it off because of, like, misogyny, right? But there are some truly... Like, that doesn't apply for, like, certain romance mangas that are, like, made for very lonely people, right? There are some romance mangas that you're like, oh man, I know exactly who you're writing for, and this is not good, brother. My letterbox ally is a rogue artificial intelligence. Have we both been transported to another world? Exclamation point, question mark. But yeah, what I'm saying is that the VTuber manga that I was talking about was very much in that branch of, like, hat slop might be the correct word for it. The story is about the main characters becoming bards with their knowledge of movies and their bard magic to make movie stuff come to life. They use the rogue AI as a movie projector. The rogue AI just has a Terminator body. Straight up like a T-1000. God, that would be incredible. The T-1000 is the... No, the T-1000 is the liquid metal one. Which one am I thinking about? The T-800? Okay, sort of, yes. So the T-800 is the one that is like a scary metal skeleton one. Which one was Arnold? Okay, he was also the T-800. You know what I'm confused about? Did they already have Terminator 2 in the works, or was Terminator 2 written as a result of, like, the runaway success of Terminator 1? Because the fact that they call this one the T-800 and the next one is the T-1000, I don't know. I feel like if you have, like, a horror movie, you want the main bad guy. I don't know, maybe... The semiotics of this one are a little bit difficult for me to piece apart. I'm not a very good... I have some skill with the iconography and signifiers of a design. Not that good at names occasionally. Because I would assume if you're making a horror movie about a robot, you would want the number to be like a nice even number, because that's more iconic as a villain. T-800 isn't necessarily iconic. Maybe they didn't actually introduce the model serial numbers until the second movie, though. Maybe that's what happened. No, they would have thought of that. So what gives? But yeah, I'm just picturing the rogue AI in this scenario having a T-800 body. HAL 9000, that's what I'm saying, right? Like you've got it precisely. Like HAL 9000, that sounds like cutting edge. That sounds like a cutting edge doohickey in order to kill me, right? Like 9,000 is a very respectable number. 800, I mean 800 is pretty good, but like it's no 1,000, right? That's why I'm confused. Well, I'm sure it must have made sense in whoever directed the movie's mind, right? Like, hang on. So, T-800 Disembaguation, The Terminator, directed by James Cameron. Oh, right. recently watched that movie. It was weird. Which one? The Terminator or Space Odyssey? Because yeah, I heard that Space Odyssey was pretty weird. Have indeed heard that Space Odyssey 2001. Ah, yeah, okay. That one was a David Lynch joint, right? If I recall correctly. It was somebody's movie at least. Okay, and then Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick. Right, okay, now I remember. For some reason, Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch both kind of mushed together in my mind. It's probably not a good thing. From what I understand, their directorial styles both had a lot to do with like. Both were very symbolism heavy, but I do think they had like vast differences between their styles. Or maybe I'm completely wrong about it. That's also possible. I've been wrong before. See, this is why I need to watch more movies. This is why I need to be on a 52 annual movies diet. I don't know. Maybe I should consider a subscription to that Criteria Collection thing. Definitely not getting a Netflix subscriptions. Not doing that again. No, sir. Okay. Then over here. Okay, and then over here we add the rice. But yeah, listening to... Okay, so one of the references that I had up here for what I wanted the picture to look like was obviously the stock photo and also the Deco 27 song, or I guess I think it's supposed to be Deco Nina, but at the same time, I think it's written Deco 27, and I'm just like Deco 27. That is a personal failure of mine. I'll admit to this. But yeah, that Love Word 7 one is okay. So the Love Word series, not 7, 4. Love Words 4. The Love Word series is a sort of... I wanted to use it because it also felt like it also had very anniversary vibes. And the reason for that is that, in particular, Love Word 4 has a lot of reference to Deco Nina's other songs. And it borrows lyrics from those to kind of make up its own verses. I don't know. It felt appropriate for the occasion. I get very emotional when it comes to songs and music about being grateful for the audience you have. Like even before I became a VTuber, right? Like 39, right? That another Vocaloid song that also had a very similar message of, thank you for, thank you for listening to the music that was made with me. From Miku's perspective. That one also got me teared up a few different times. I don't know what it is about it that gets me. Maybe it's the idea, maybe it is because of the reminiscence that is involved with it. I don't know. At the end of my life, I want to be able to look back and see a great number of accomplishments rather than being like it. You know, everybody has different circumstances, right? Sometimes the best thing you can do is to just get through life. You know, that, and sometimes that is enough. But I want to, you know, I have ambition. I have the desire to, you know, I think it's a very human desire to want to be able to have something that you've created outlast you, or at least touch a lot of people, and the way that, and, you know, not necessarily change the way they live their lives, but have a profound impact on their emotions that they at least remember for a long time. I don't know. I guess that's why I really love those kinds of songs where it's grateful to the audience and also discusses how far the artist has come. I don't know. It really impresses on you that this is always and will always be a journey. You know, it's not over till it's over. That's a good feeling to have. It's... I don't know. I think, for me, a problem that I've found that I have is consistency. Because there is that idea that success is a habit, and it's absolutely true. Like, if you can habitually put effort towards something, anything, that alone will make you vastly more successful at it than 80% of other people. You know, then your problem is is competing with the remaining 20% that are also capable of putting in consistent effort into something. But, you know, that's only if you see them as competition. Otherwise, you know, it's all smiles. Okay, then over here. Perfect. But yeah, building that discipline and habit is, of course, I think the most challenging part. Because I think a lot of the time we are incentivized to only do the things that'll provide us short-term profit. Not just in the fiscal sense, of course, but also in just terms of rewards and such. You know, people complain about like how short people's attention spans are nowadays, but like literally everything in and surrounding you most of the time, a lot of the conventional things that are available to most people are made and are created with the goal of exploiting a shorter attention span. So it stands to reason that, you know, a lot of things that are available freely are also created with short attention spans. It's sort of a vicious cycle, of course. Of course, having a strong attention span and a strong sense of focus has always been a valuable trait. So I imagine it's not always necessarily that people in the past had a better attention spans. I do imagine that there were more or less the same number of people who were happy to goof off. I just imagine that even those who had time to goof off or wanted to goof off were probably... You know, I'm sure they didn't have to deal with whatever the fuck two ads before watching a YouTube video has to feel like. I mean, I use an ad blocker, but, you know, sometimes I'm on a platform where I can't use an ad blocker, and then I remember it's like after a lifetime of eating cooked meals, you try to like eat a raw hamburger, right? Like your body isn't used to that. You can't handle that. And in much the same way, when I was trying to listen to Precious Thing from the Bomb Rush Cyberpunk soundtrack made by Ollie, on my work computer. I did in fact have to sit through 2 ads in order to listen to that. I'm not sure what the message of that particular story is. There was a lot more stuff that timed itself in the past. Yeah, I imagine in the sense that, like, it just wasn't as urgent a lot of the times. Okay, so like I do work an office job, right? And sometimes I have clients that want a response in a very, very short amount of time. And I can deal with that, but the only reason I have to deal with that is because of email and because of the convenience that's afforded by email. If email didn't exist, I would have no such issues. But it does exist, and therefore I must suffer. But that's how it is, I suppose. There's a lot of different fields where you can say that something like that happened. Well, it's also true that there hasn't been a single field that the internet hasn't in some way transformed. That's just kind of that's kind of just like what the technology is. People are giving the same kind of hype to AI nowadays, but I still have a lot of strong doubts about all that. I imagine it's going to be the thing is, right? The thing that really chafes about the whole AI debacle is that it's really horrible now, right? Like it's never been perfect, right? And it's never going to be perfect just by definition of how it works. But the thing is that while everybody's yelling, "Hey man, listen, you're fucking wasting your time trying to shoehorn this technology into everything," while everybody with good sense in their heads is saying this, everybody who's like pushing AI and trying to adopt it to be on the ground floor of like the next internet that they're hoping this is going to be is like, no, it's going to work, it's going to work, it's going to work. And the really funny thing is, as long as they manage to stall long enough, as long as they manage to kind of stall long enough that people kind of wear themselves out trying to fight back, and other people are like, oh yeah, and can be fooled into being like, oh yeah, this is absolutely giving you the investment returns that we promised you. It is genuinely getting better as a technology. I think the game plan right now as it stands is seemingly keep bullshitting and just wait until our technology gets better, and that way we can deliver on those promises like 5 years down the line and we'll all be rich. I feel like that's the current game plan. The only reason it hasn't worked for like crypto and other junk is because it genuinely, the purpose of that was so vacuous in the first place that it was just not really usable. Like, it couldn't produce anything material besides maybe a complicated mathematical equation. It's a kind of a despicable landscape that we have to operate in as artists and as creators. But well, I'm sure people have made it farther with less. Well, enough about that pessimistic talk. Let me tell you a story. I feel, speaking of like a life balance and constant effort, one of the things that it can help a lot with maintaining a consistent effort is having, again, a healthy body and a balanced sleep schedule, having a good diet. That's also another barrier, is that a lot of people either can't afford to or can't make time to have those things. In particular, I feel like I need to really work on my sleep schedule. Especially because the other day I was so out of it that I was making myself instant coffee in the morning. I poured the dust into the mug. I poured the instant coffee into the mug. but I forgot to actually fill the mug with water after that. So I put it in the microwave and started up the microwave, and I'm like, I'm forgetting something, aren't I? And I opened the microwave, and there is a cup of hot dust waiting to greet me. Because I just microwaved the instant without the coffee. That was pretty funny. This other time, I almost caused an incident because I... Alright, this is gonna sound pretty bad, but I promise you it was a really funny accident. So, sometimes bugs get into an apartment. That is a regular occurrence. We've all been in a situation where we needed to shoo out a spider, a caterpillar, an ant, what have you. Well, hopefully not an ant. Hopefully you don't have ants in your house. That would be a big bummer. But one time, a ladybug flew into my house, into my apartment, and naturally, I couldn't really let it stay there. I don't know how much of a pest ladybugs are precisely, but I don't imagine they're good. At the very least, I didn't want it in my house. So I did what any reasonable man would do, and I trapped it under a glass, slid some paper under that sucker, and transported it out into the stairwell, where I would no longer need to worry about it. On my way back, I opened the door to what I thought was my apartment, and from the bathroom, I hear somebody say, "Hello?" And I realize this isn't my apartment. This was like the apartment of a neighbor that was like 2 doors down or so, that I had accidentally wandered into because I wasn't looking at the door plates. Very nearly caused an incident. Imagine if like they weren't there in the bathroom at the time. Imagine if they'd seen my face. That would have been a huge problem. Thankfully, it seems like it was resolved without further issue. But yeah, that one was a big fuck up. I am watching the door plates like an eagle now. But yeah, listen. I do think I need to be more careful about the amount of sleep I'm getting. Really, I think that's the only thing that can be done to avoid this. That and actually looking at the door plates. The crazy... Okay, so, okay, not to victim blame, though. Why did you have your door unlocked while you were in the bathroom? Like, the door to your apartment locked. Like, of course, you know, if you forget to lock the door to your bathroom, that's also another... That's like a whole different thing. But the door to your apartment while you're in the bathroom, how does that happen precisely? It's just bizarre to me. Absolutely not my proudest moment, though. It was mortifying. I thought I had committed a crime. But like I said, thankfully it ended without any incident. Okay. I need to draw the sun on a separate layer. Let's try this. You know, on the bright side, the good news is that the ladybug made it out okay. I don't think I ended up seeing that ladybug again. What else has happened recently? Love ladybugs. I don't know. There's such a there's something so readily charming about ladybugs. I don't know if it's because of their colorful shell or because they're supposed to represent good luck. Something about them is just very likable as an insect. I'm gonna drink some water. Alrighty. Oh yeah. Now that summer has more or less officially ended. I can tell you a funny thing that happened to me during the summertime. So there is a corner store very close to where my office is. And occasionally, if I've got nothing going on that day and, maybe I just want a break or I want a sweet treat or something, I'll get myself an ice cream from the corner shop. Because it's just nice to treat yourself every once in a while. Of course, always love to see beetles flying. I do think there is something very majestic, almost like vertical takeoff and landing about such creatures. Beetles and dragonflies are like top 10 animals for virtue of being like tiny helicopters. But yeah, I went to get myself some ice cream, right? And I noticed at the corner store they have that that ice cream of SpongeBob that has the little gumball eyes and, frequently looks a little bit busted. Because character ice cream has to look a little bit messed up as kind of a general rule. They had that, and of course I wanted to grab myself one because at the end of the day it is a fine ice cream. Got my SpongeBob ice cream. I go outside of the corner store, and two gorgeous goth women, very highly attractive goth women, were waiting for the bus as I exit in plain sight. They didn't make eye contact with me, but they could very clearly see I was carrying the SpongeBob ice cream. In that moment, I understood what a generational aura loss felt like. My children are gonna go into aura debt. Ay, ay, ay. Very life-affirming moment, though. I don't know. Something about that experience was strangely life-affirming. Like, this would happen to me, huh? Not necessarily a bad thing that happened, but it is very comical. That's something that I'm very grateful for in my life. Even if bad shit happens to me, it is a lot of the time pretty funny. The one time that some bad shit happened to me and I couldn't really laugh about it, I managed to get out of that situation okay, too. So thankfully all was well. Okay, nice. Oh yeah. I've been meaning to do something. So, a very small change has occurred to my color scheme. And I'm talking like minimal change. So let me open up a picture quickly. So this is the reference sheet that I made for myself of my Sona, right? If I select this color, it is hex D8E986 for my trademark green color. But recently, I realized that the colors on this might not be printer safe. Well, they're probably definitely not printer safe. But the good news is, in CSP, you have a way of previewing the color of your of your work. And hang on. View. Right, color profile. So you go under view, and then at the very bottom there's color profile. And you go to preview settings. Right now this work is in RGB, sRGB profile. So RGB is the main standard for computer monitors. That stands for red, green, and blue. It's basically the three light colors that an LED can have. And because of that, it has colors that are on the visible spectrum, but not on the pigmented spectrum. That is to say, if you try to print out some colors in the light spectrum, that might not be possible simply because of the technology that we use to print anything. For printer safe colors, you want to go for CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key black. Did you see that? Did you see how there was like the slightest shift in color from RGB? Hang on. From sRGB to, let's say, US sheet-fed coded V2. Slightly less, it's slightly more dull. The colors aren't as bright in some places. They're slightly darker. Some of them are closer to white. That happens. And let me see, actually, real quick, if the hex code remains. Yeah, okay, the hex code has remained unchanged. But if I put this here... So hang on. So grab this. Okay, does that look... No, that's slightly different. That is annoying because it doesn't... Hang on. Filter, view, color profile. I guess the easiest way would probably be to export this as a .tiff file, which can export in the CMYK color profile. Let me see something real quick. Convert CMYK color to RGB color and import it. Use save duplicate or export to save again in CMYK color format. There we go. And yep, there we go. This one is not the 8E, whatever the heck, the D8E986. I'm so close to being a Germa reference. I am like literally one digit off from being 985. It is now CFDD7C. But yeah, very fascinating little thing. And you know what? I think I did actually fuck up what my colors are for my new model in that case, because I do look the same as I ever have. Oh, jeez. Oh, well. But yeah, let's try to keep this all printer safe. I feel like by introducing that change to now, I'm kind of future-proofing it in case I do ever have to print myself. This isn't me soft launching a merch announcement, by the way. This is just general future-proofing. I'm a little bit obsessed with future-proofing as a concept. But yeah, it's just good to have something that can stand the test of time. I feel more at ease when I have that on my side. For a guy who doesn't really do like large scale stuff, I feel like that's one of my weaknesses, is that I feel compelled to make things highly scalable, even though that's really not necessary. Like, I have this desire to create things that are scalable and that can be used in like larger contexts. But, you know, I neither have the skill nor really the need to create those things for my purposes. Like, back during the auction that I did in 2024, I had all these illusions of, oh man, I bet I can probably transform this so anybody can use it and make their own little auction. That didn't end up happening. I kind of conked out of that, and it bugged me for a long time until I remembered, wait a minute, I'm the only one who needs to be able to use this. Like, of course, it'd be great if I could share it. I would feel great if I could share it, but I'm not obligated to share it. I'm not obligated to do that. I don't need to hold that over my own head. I don't know. I guess it's a little bit of a conflict between, as a creator, right? I don't know. I've never been the kind of person who's like particularly jealous with my methods. Like, if you can figure out what I do to make an effect, or if you straight up ask, hey, how do you do this thing? I'm always happy to share because I love telling people about what I do. I love when people can feel empowered to create things. At the same time, though, I guess a lot of the appeal of being an artist is the whole DIY thing. So I don't often get asked questions about how to do art stuff. That's probably for the best, though. It's good to maintain a balance between like having people ask you stuff and also having your own peace. I will say that that you can't go wrong with balloons and primary colors. I might have fucked up a little bit here. There we go. No, we're fine. We're fine. I was gonna say I might have fucked up a bit here because I couldn't really get what I made. Like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I made an uneven number of balloons. And I feel like in order to have an equal amount of color representation in the balloons, so that no color feels like, I accidentally added too many blue balloons or too many red balloons. I guess one option is to just make every balloon a unique color, but that's also a lot of work in terms of just shading and changing stuff around. I just realized that I forgot the S in my name for my logo. What the hell? Can you imagine I post an anniversary art piece and it just says Pab? Who the fuck is Pab? Typo, forget the goth chick seeing me carry a SpongeBob ice cream. That would have been generational aura loss. Hey, it's my guy Pab. And 2. The singular Pab. Yeah, no, What is there a word for words that are normally referred to? It's kind of like how datum is the singular of data. Like nobody says datum, right? But like most people say data, even if it's like a singular piece of data, even if it is a datum. Okay. I'm gonna make the sun just a little bit bigger. I'm also going to scale down the width of its lines. God, it is a kind of like a kilobyte, petabyte, gigabyte, and byte situation, huh? Like a PAB is like so technically most streams have about 4 megapabs of data. Now, a clip compilation actually has more PABs per data, more PABs data. So a clip compilation would have about 15 gigapabs because it's compressing a lot of PABs related information into a smaller medium. It's very PABs dense. All right, then over here. God, listening and learning. Did I ever tell the story of how I used? Okay, so quick check to make sure that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Has everybody seen the XKCD comic on passwords? Is that something that people are familiar with? So a long time ago, I saw this comic, in high school specifically, where they break down the kind of data science behind password complexity. So this is what a quote-unquote typical password would look like Troubadour and 3. It's very randomized, but it fulfills all the conditions of, minimum 8 characters, at least one digit, one symbol, one capital letter. They break this down and show that this has 28 bits of entropy. So at 1,000 guesses per second, that'll take about 3 days. Plausible attack on a weak remote web service. Yes, cracking a stolen hash is faster, but it's not what the average user should worry about. Difficulty to guess, easy. Difficulty to remember, hard. Was it trombone? No, troubadour. And one of the O's was a 0? And there was some symbol. Compare that to correct horse battery staple. 4 words put together, but are very common. It has actually about 44 bits of entropy just because it has a bunch of different letters, and it just has more overall. It'll take 550 years at 1,000 guesses per second. Therefore, even using a Ripper thing like Jack the Ripper, it would be very difficult to guess. And correct horse battery staple, that's actually fairly easy to remember, especially if you use it frequently. I used this comic as a basis of inspiration for like a math assignment that I had to do one time. We had to, for my high school math class, we had to design or do an assignment where we like looked more in depth into a random mathematical thing. And because of this comic, I decided to look into like some data science stuff behind passwords and such. Unsurprisingly, I didn't get a very good grade on it because it's a very in-depth field, and I was, 17, 16? And knew nothing about computers. But, it's still nice to try and find out new things. I also learned way more than I probably needed to about password hacking. I never actually put it into anything that I learned into practice, of course, but I did learn about tools like Jack the Ripper, which is one of the password guessing machines that this comic is talking about. I think it was generally specialized for use in whatchamacallit, like Wi-Fi passwords. Something like that. But it's fun. I don't know. I feel like if I had had more time to learn about it, I feel like I would have enjoyed it more. Let's see. I'm trying to remember how to shade balloons, and I think I'm remembering. Vaguely remember. So it's not like this. Has to do a lot with gradients, honestly. So, okay, first of all, we do need to have something similar to what we did previously, but It's more like this. So let's make it shrink width by 10. Let's give it 20. And actually, we could probably just move this down to the corner and it would be fine. We'd probably have more of a shadow up here, since this is right against my shirt. But yeah, the thing for balloons to remember is that they are extremely reflective little bastards. Okay. I think we can use a little bit of the soft eraser here. Yeah, giving them a more painterly style is the way to go, I think. Okay, so we can have something like this. And also just blend that out. Awesome. Okay, yeah, that's a move. Or maybe not. Hang on. Maybe just a little bit of the brush tool. That might be it. That might be it. How do I reflect green on red? Maybe we can make it like almost like a purplish color. Oops. Hang on. Okay, so we're gonna use the brush tool again. No. Hang on, this might be better to do on a different layer. That way we can play around with the colors just until... Or actually, hang on, I've got an idea. Hang on. We can do a little bit of, cheating isn't the right word, but definitely a little bit of... chicanery here. Ooh, okay. Okay, what happens if I do color? Okay, interesting. I think I kind of like that, honestly. Let's use that. But also... bring this a little closer to this, and... Yes, okay. We can blend that, we can keep blending that out, and that'll make a nice reflection on the balloon. We can also use a couple of darker shadows here and there. Or maybe I should use another light point. That might be the way. That might be the way to go. Or actually, maybe even like this. I haven't been keeping an eye on like the mouse tracking that I've been implemented into this model, by the way. Does that look like anything? Does that does that look right? Oh yeah, that looks much better. Let's just make sure to blend that out completely. Hey? What do you mean, hey? What did I... Oh, did I do something wrong? Okay, blend this part out. That looks right. Yeah, that seems good. Actually, let's go back here. Maybe more like this. Oops, that's the wrong button. And just darken that a little bit. Maybe saturate it a little more. That's honestly pretty good. Alright, we'll leave that settled for that balloon. Let's do this. That seems about right. Okay, blend that part out a little bit. We can also blend out the back part of these guys over here because they're just made to show the circumference of the balloon. No, okay, that might be the way to go, or maybe it isn't. Yeah, okay, let's just, okay. Oh, wait, actually, hang on, what if we try this? Yes, okay, that'll work. It always messes me up how, like, this particular song that I have in my playlist sounds like the Wii Sports Resort theme. Like, occasionally I'll just be sitting there and it has that, like, last little piano thing, and I'm like, this is a Wii Sports Resort theme, isn't it? Or no, no, it's... I don't know if it's a Wii Sports Resort or a Wii Sports non-resort one. The crazy thing that I noticed recently is that I'm not okay, so listen. Being a guy in a hoodie and jeans is absolutely not the most distinctive VTuber outfit you can have. male or female. Like I have seen some female VTubers rocking the hoodie and jeans combo, right? That I also use. But as a guy, it is kind of like one of the most basic of basic outfits you can have. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Basic works, right? And I have been making this work for the past 4 years, clearly. I rock this IR all the time. Well, that's a slightly different circumstance, though. Because... I don't know. I do... You do have a very fair point. We are matching in that regard. It's a good thing. I slightly lost my train of thought. But yeah, I don't know. I do think I make it work just by virtue of absolutely not being like any other male VTuber I've ever seen. But it did... Now I remember. It did surprise me how other guys co-opt... or rather use the like the green hoodie and jeans combo, because I think like there's also this other dude called Quite or something like that also running around, and also that guy Vidal who also has a very similar outfit. I don't know, it's just really funny to me that, damn, not only am I unoriginal, but like I've got two Galaxy tier motherfuckers doing the same thing. To be fair, neither of them has a bag of rice for a head, but at the same time, it's like any comparisons that I could invite are, they put me in a rough situation. No, it's called Great Minds Think Alike, bro. My man. Ryan, you have such a way with words. I feel like you have such a great way of spinning things towards a positive. I am genuinely grateful to have you there to have my back. Also, hi, Sentai. The beast that heralds your presence is looking as healthy as ever. How you doing today? Why did I leave this huge divot here? There we go. Let's see. There we go. Man, I fucking miss Wii Sports Resort. Now that I mention it, I really gotta find a way to get it back on my Wii. Or actually to play Wii games. Period. I do have a Wii in my apartment. I have it from my Milk Money days that I brought it with me when I eventually moved out of my parents' house, and I do have a couple games for it, but I don't actually have Wii Sports Resort. I don't think. I might have it, but I don't think I do. I don't know. How is... I feel like this is a bad... hang on. I was about to ask, how is emulation for the Wii these days, but I feel like a public forum might not be the best place to ask that question. So I shall exercise judgment and not ask that publicly. But I imagine it's probably come at least a little bit of a ways from where it once was. Okay, there we go. And we'll just add one here. But yeah, I miss Wii Sports. I miss the boxing minigame. I remember I spent a lot of time on the sword minigame for Wii Sports Resort. But I really want to revisit the boxing minigame sometime. So I gotta get my run back on that one character, that one dude in the orange shirt that's called like Mike or something. From what I understand, instead, if that guy showed up, you were just cooked. They just like made the most monstrous me in the game and gave it the name Mike. Okay, then put the shadow here. Now I think it's too much effort to give myself like that much of a defined chin. I think that much is fine. I do feel like I should probably make the shadows on my face a little bit gentler though, just so that they are not as invasive as the other ones. Okay, then over here. Never considered you could have a chin. Maybe I'm a bad person. I mean, it kind of... Listen. First of all, I forgive you. Second of all, like... I understand why you might think that I don't have a chin. First of all, I don't have my neck isn't really existent. My neck is not an observable phenomenon. So I feel like, I don't know, neck and chin are both very, they're weirdly correlated concepts. Like, of course, both of them are attached to the same kind of general structure, but I feel like if you say, like, that guy doesn't have a chin, it's like, oh, okay, that guy doesn't have a neck either. I feel like that's not that strange of a logical leap to make. Or rather, if you say that guy has no neck, you know, it's also a plausible leap to be like, okay, that guy's no chin then. But then I guess he'd be all chin, though. Like, if by deductive logic, you go, okay, so the neck is what connects the head to the chin. I don't know. It's very strange. That is like one of my favorite memes now, though, is I never considered X. Maybe I'm a bad person as a joke. I don't know, there's something very gentle about it. Granted, the kind of like self-flagellation isn't ideal, but at the same time, I do feel like it does carry the spirit of listening and learning. You know, like if somebody pitches a joke like that at me, I do feel like their heart is at least at the right place. Like, it's very difficult to be mad at somebody who's doing their best. You said an invasive talking about the shading, and I imagine shadows are some kind of invasive species. Pretty sure that happened to that fellow Mickey Mouse one time in that one game. Was it called Epic Mickey? That's the one. Called Epic Mickey, not published on the Epic Store. Are they stupid? That being said, I still have to sing the praises of GOG.com. So did this happen to Doctor Who, or were they a flop species? Flop species is an insane term. Hi, Jupiter. You are starting off insanely strong tonight. That is... Flop species is a kill shot sentence. This might have happened to Doctor Who. I don't remember from the Doctor Who episodes that I do remember. I don't remember any of them that are related to shadows. It might have had some shit to do with the Weeping Angels, but I do not recall. I simply do not recall. Not to be confused with slop species. No, those include pigs, which are, of course, you know, the preeminent slop connoisseurs in the zoological field. Aliens looking at organisms on Earth. Look at all that Terra slop. Terra slop is crazy work. That's absolutely a genre of alien fiction. Like, okay, hear me out. You know how like a lot of Western Hemisphere audiences are obsessed in a strange way with Japan? Like, it's not strange to be obsessed with like products made in Japan, or like, you know, it's even normal to be like kind of interested in Japanese culture. That's also not that strange. But there are some people who are like extremely weird about Japan, like that one meme that's like Thing Japan. Do you think that like aliens have that exact same thing for aliens who visit Earth? Do you think boneless aliens have an inverse derogatory term for bone stuff? I don't know. Like, aliens reading Dragon Ball? We ain't doing shit like that. What the hell? God. Aliens would have, like, species envy from reading Dragon Ball. It's like Gleep Glorp. The green one is just like me for real. Sadly, I can never be just like him. Currently feeling emotions, sad. That is true. I mean, like, hang on, though. We do already have the term spineless, right? As just like a human term for somebody who is like cowardly. I have a species envy from reading Dragon Ball TVH. me seeing Tien Shinhan and Krillin. Damn, bro, I'm never gonna be top of my species tier. I don't think Shonen Husk is quite the right angle. Shonen Husk is what happens to those series that are too popular to be ended, but the writer doesn't want to keep working on them. Dragon Ball doing wonders for the ball community? I know that's right. I fucking know that's right. There was this one tweet that I'm kind of obsessed with that said that, like, a universal rule of Dragon Ball is that at any time, some bald motherfucker could show up and ruin your entire day. It happened with Tien Shinhan. It happened with King Piccolo. It happened with Piccolo Jr. It happened with Frieza. Surprisingly, did not happen with Raditz, but it happened with Nappa for a lot of the Z Warriors. Again, happened with Frieza. That one we know about. Happened with Ginyu. Happened with Cell, technically. Cell is technically bald, isn't he? And I get it also technically happened with Boo. So this is a remarkably accurate statement. So I do feel like anybody who is struggling with like self-image issues as a balding person would probably stand to gain from finding a Dragon Ball character to identify with. Babidi and Boo are pretty much bald. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Imagine if the new hotness was removing all your bones. If people can remove ribs and teeth for aesthetic purposes, what's next? I mean, that's kind of what happened with like the whole dance craze of popping, wasn't it? Jiren and Moro are bald too. Right, that's true. And Beerus! Beerus is like double bald. Beerus is like bald normal style, and he's also based on like a bald species of cat. Does it also happen in Doctor Who? Maybe I'm not. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an Anglophile. I feel like it probably happened at Doctor Who at some point. Did the fucking... Okay, did the last human... Okay, do you remember the last human that was like moisturize me? I feel like we've all seen... If you've seen Doctor Who, you've probably seen the human that goes like moisturize me, right? Was that one bald? I genuinely cannot remember. He's bald normal style. Yeah, like Homer Simpson is like bald normal style, kind of. He has those like 3 lines of hair, but that's about it. Goma and Daima is also potentially bald. We don't know since he has that Jesser hat thing kind of going on. I think that's just his skull, dog. Schrodinger's bald? Possibly. Hang on, like... Last human Doctor Who. Cassandra O'Brien. No hair! No hair on Cassandra O'Brien. The all-skin human, we've all seen her. Yeah, there she is. Okay, yeah, no, we're yeah, she was bald. She was bald, and she was possibly the most bald you could be. I think. I don't know how you get balder than this. Like, this seems like it's pretty much the upper limit. I guess the eyelashes could go. You don't really need the eyelashes, really. God, that is crazy to think about. She's very on trends. One day the tide will turn, and instead of hair transplants, we'll be doing follicle removal. I mean, there is like laser hair surgery, but that's only that's for hair that I ideologically disagree with removing. Pardon me for the phrase I'm about to say. Wearing my I Heart Rainforest Pussy t-shirt. that's for hair that I fundamentally do not agree with the principle of removing. Okay, maybe we can have something up here too. Maybe we can use a milli pen here. Yeah, that looks neat. Real hashtag clean girls have bald ass heads. You have hair on your head? Ew. God. I wish TikTok had the equivalent of you know how in Tumblr they'll say like investing in at 500 at like 40 nodes or like 20 nodes whenever they think a post will get popular. I feel like we need to have that but just for general statements. We need to have that for like, you know, for the gift of the prophecy happening upon somebody out of random caprice. I don't know. Personal grooming is a really complicated field in some regards. Because on the one hand, some of it is stuff that absolutely makes sense, right? Like, for example, keeping your nails trimmed, taking a shower every day, washing your hair, staying moisturized, funnily enough. Right? Those are all things that I can pretty readily agree with. But other times it's like, oh yeah, no, get a chemical removal of parts of your skin so that you can just have like super clean skin. And it's like, pause. Hang on. Like, there's something so scary about chemical peels, and I feel like a lot of people will... The thing is that I feel like people are more interested in appearing clean than, like, being meaningfully clean, if that makes sense. You keep on talking and a rainforest t-shirt manifests on you in the anniversary art. That would be a crazy-ass birthday gift to give to myself. The ability to be loud and proud about some of the opinions that I feel I should probably keep to myself. You know, they do say you have to give... You know, there is like that one Twin Peaks line about like every day give yourself a little present. It doesn't have to be big, but you know, appreciate yourself. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten worse at celebrating birthdays. If that makes sense. Like, when you're a kid, right, and you celebrate your birthday, it's like, this is the greatest day, this is the best day of my life this year, yay! And, you know, that can vary, of course. Bad things can happen on your birthday, but broadly speaking, it's a time for mirth and joy. But I feel like as an adult, like, my sense for special occasions is just dulled completely. Like, I feel like I just have zero understanding of, like... Because I just treat myself nicely most days. You know, I do try to treat myself nicely, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but then what do I do for like special occasions? There's nothing that getting worse at birthdays is decently common. Yeah, I feel like maybe it is also because of the fact that you've just had fewer of them as a child. Like by the time you're an adult, you've had 18 to 20 birthdays under your belt, right? Depending on like, you know, 18, 21 birthdays, depending on like whichever the particular culture you're coming in from. The race is straight up forgetting how old you are. I have run that risk a couple of times. I'm lucky right now because I'm I'm 25 years old this year, right? Like I'm 25 right now. That is such an easy age to remember. Partially because of like, you know, the Christmas cake meme and also the Christmas cake just thing in general. But also just because it's a nice even number. When I turn 27, I will be fucked. I will not remember how old I am when I'm 27. I'm not going to remember that shit ever. Also, I do think I need to change the color on this part here. Me, a 29-year-old? You're so young, man. Everybody keeps saying, a lot of people say that to me, but I am recently noticing that my body's check engine light has started turning on more recently. Like between the plantar fasciitis and the fact that I woke up with like a backache the other day. Like I do feel like I need to start fucking locking in on this self-care shit or else I'm gonna perish. God, whenever I'm like, oh God, I'm getting old. I think of like that Burger Pants conversation from Undertale where he's like, I'm 22 years old and I've already wasted my whole life. And it's like, okay, we don't want to be like that guy for sure. If you ask me, there's a decent chance that I blurred out the wrong answer. Instead of being lying about my age because I'm embarrassed about a type of old person, I'm going to be really early specific age dementia. Yeah, no. I feel that though, because like, it took me a while to remember to say I'm 24 when I was 24. Again, the 25 years thing is fairly easy because again, even number, you have the whole Christmas cake thing, that's fine. God, another thing that I need. Has there been like, okay, quick check back into the Rainforest Pussy t-shirt. Is there like a t-shirt that says like Christmas cake eater or something like that? Is that something we can get on the menu? Is that something that we can like negotiate? Or are we not allowed to have that because of woke? Asking for a friend. God, but yeah, no, I can feel it. I can feel like it's gonna start to get more difficult to remember my age. Probably not once I hit 30. I feel like once I hit 30, I'm probably going to be able to remember, yeah, I'm in my 30s. And everybody will be like, I see you're in your 30s. I got 5 years left until I'm 30, man. I'm fucked. I don't know. I just have to keep holding on until I make it to 30 because I trust Guillermo del Toro's assessment that like once you turn 30, like everything starts to make more sense to you. I just need to keep hanging on a little bit longer. We'll get there eventually. Maybe not Christmas cake eater, but possibly fruitcake eater, as that is the usual word. Is fruitcake okay? Hang on, Ryan. Just to make sure that we're on the same page. Fruitcake is also like the term for like women past 25. Is that what you're talking about? Like, I'm talking about the thing from anime where like they call women over 25 like Christmas cakes, and you know. Hearing that out loud, I do remember that it is a very misogynistic term. So maybe I shouldn't look into that. You've only got 1 billion years until you're 1,025,000,000 years old. No, 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 no. I don't mean actual physical cake. I meant it's a euphemism for women older than 25. Apologies for the confusion. I am happy to see that it's become a less commonplace term overall in anime. You know what? Feminism is winning. Strange as though it may be, feminism is winning because I'm no longer seeing women older than 25 in anime being called Christmas cakes. I don't disrespect women like that, so I wouldn't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, the sentiment is valid, but the wording of it, something about it conflicts me. Not sure I want to roll like that. Almost positive I don't want to roll like that. But the thing is, like, okay, so listen, if you have like a MILF Hunter shirt, that's also like very narrow. Because like then you're specifically looking for, you know, people who have at one point been mothers. It's a complicated fucking field out there. The world, the Tao of the pickup line t-shirt is a broad one indeed. Even devoting your entire life to it, you could barely hope to scratch the surface. I don't know. It is like one of those little things where it's like you notice that it's not as common nowadays, and you feel relieved. Well, they're there if you want to narrow your options. Yeah, that's true. You know, suppose somebody has a revelation later on in their life about like what they're about. You know, those not the best option by any means, but definitely an option, which is better than no options. Damn, that's a really good balloon. Thank you. Imagining a scenario where two strangers by chance stand next to each other on the bus or train, one rainforest shirt and one an eater lover shirt. God. You know what? Love can bloom at any moment between any two people. I think if two people meet in that and meet like that and they get along, I think that's fabulous. The next Romeo and Juliet, that's what I'm saying. That's the vibe. Clip it and ship it. We've got a new Hallmark movie on our hands. I never understood that. Hang on, let me double check something. Hallmark is a movie directory thing, right? Pussy Eater's Christmas. Hold up. Yo, Ryan. I really like that message. I really like that message. Okay. Okay, Hallmark is a channel, apparently. Hallmark Movie Wikipedia. Hallmark Channel original movies. Okay, so it is very much just a production company specifically for these movies. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that was a thing that happened. Fucking the other day, I got a Tumblr ask in my inbox from an anonymous user. I don't know who this is. I don't know what their circumstances or particular. I think they also make cards. Okay, I've heard of that one. Those guys I'm aware of as well. But yeah, I went to check my inbox on Tumblr the other day, and I saw that I got a new message, and somebody was like, "Rate Hallmark movies with me," or something like that, or watch Hallmark movies and rate them with me. No, review Hallmark movies with me with a heart emoji. Dear anonymous user, I cannot do that. I appreciate you shooting your shot. I cannot do that. I'm sorry. I will not be doing that. I know I had this whole thing that I said that I would like watch a movie a week, but I feel like watching Hallmark movies exclusively to fulfill that quota would kill me a little bit. I don't think it would be healthy for me just in any way to do that. On the other hand, maybe exposure therapy is just what I need. You know, maybe they don't even have to be good movies. They just have to be movies that exist. I don't know. I don't think it's bad to have some standards, though. At the same time. Review every Journey to the West adaptation. That I might be able to swing. Okay, does anybody follow a YouTube channel called... And I swear to God, they're a good YouTube channel. The name is just a little bit rough around the edges. Does anybody follow a YouTube channel called Overly Sarcastic Productions? Because they have been, for the past few years, like definitely longer than I've been streaming, right? For the past few years, they've been making an adaptation summary of like select chapters from Journey to the West, and it is good stuff. I am really liking that video series. Like 80% of my knowledge of the actual goings on of Journey to the West comes from their videos. And that might expose me as a fraud, but I don't particularly care. They make good, they make good stuff. I guess it's not a fraud so much as a poser. God, it does sicken me to know that now that I've made like Chinese literature and Chinese culture a part of like my brand among my friend group, that if I'm exposed for not actually knowing too much about some of these things, I'll be considered like an ultra poser. I do think that would be a very funny outcome, though. So I'm not particularly concerned by it. All posers are frauds, but not all frauds are posers. That's so true. Wait, you're cooking with that. No, so true, bestie, because the fact... Listen, you can... Okay, so all posers are frauds? Correct. That makes so much sense, because if you're a poser, you don't actually know what you're actually dealing with, right? That's the definition of a poser, is that, you know, you only adapt to a specific subculture, medium, fandom, whatever, superficially, and you're not engaging with it on a particularly... You don't even actually know what it's about. It's very exclusively on a superficial level, your engagement. Conversely, a fraud isn't necessarily somebody who... They can be both somebody who engages in it in a superficial level, as Ryan has helpfully pointed out, that, you know, a poser is a fraud. But they can also just be full send 100% believing, you know, a true believer in whatever they're a fraud about. They're just not very good at it. Case in point, the fraud of the century, Mr. Fraud Watch himself, that guy from Kamen Rider Gotchard, whose name I can never remember. He was full on set. He thought he was a shit. He thought he was a real deal every single time. And he did do everything that he was supposed to do as an alchemist. And yet he still got mollywopped week after week. That alone cannot be explained by being a poser. That is a kind of... he is a natural born fraud. Kurogane Spanner, the best character. I had to watch the fucking video essay that... I think it was Jay who posted it the other day in the Toku Zone. What a night joke da. Maybe I should just blur this entire section here. And then maybe with a little bit of this. I feel like the difference between like a poser and a fraud is like Vegeta versus Mr. Satan, right? Like I remember like Vegeta has been on fraud watch from time to time because he, you know, try as he might, he's just not that guy for a lot of the time. And you know, we've all been in that situation. God damn, I'm getting really good at rendering balloons. You know, I have been thinking recently, I need to do more studies. Not in the sense that I just need practice drawing specific things, because while that's good, it doesn't really prepare you for anything in particular. It's just like, you would need to do it extensively for a vast variety of different fields in order to just like have it be something you can do off the cuff. But I have found a different way of looking at studies. Me seeing Vegeta get his arm broken by Android 18. Yeah, we've all been there. The thing is, we have all been there. I know I say we've all been there as a joke very frequently, but sometimes we have all been there. No cap, full send genuine sympathy. We have all been there. Okay, there we go. But you know what? At least the thing about Vegeta is even though he never wins, he also never gives up. So it's almost kind of endearing in certain ways. The main conflict of Vegeta's character is that he thinks he's that guy, but he's not. But he works hard to be that guy, but he never learns that he's not that guy. So it's a very... It's almost like an unstoppable force, that being Vegeta's ego, meeting an immovable object. The fact that Vegeta isn't gonna be that guy. Series of still lives that you caption family portrait study, food people joke. That would be pretty funny. I have a bad habit of doing the thumb pose. You know what? I do also do the thumb pose sometimes. Sometimes it's such a bad idea. You're jinxing yourself so bad by doing the thumb pose, but it's so instinctual and tasty. It's like it scratches some kind of psychological itch. But yeah, I was talking about studies, right? So the way that I learned... So I recently read the Wikipedia article on studies, and I found out that the studies aren't just practice for like generic scenarios. In a lot of cases, what studies do is that they give you very specific practice for a piece that you're planning to do in the future. So like, and somebody wanted to draw... Hang on, let me actually pull up the article. We can do that right now. Okay. Here we go. In art, a study is a drawing, sketch, or painting done in preparation for a finished piece, as visual notes or as practice. Right? So let's say you wanted to draw this gentleman in particular. Right? You would want to... If you were making a painting of this guy, you will want to capture it from different angles, so that in that way, no matter what end composition you had in mind, you can still do it. But it's just very specifically for this guy, and it's very specifically for the one that you're doing in the future. And, you know, he's got him in two positions that are very similar. And, you know, similarly over here. Like, this one here in particular was the one that got me. So, Elihu Vedder, 1896, preparatory study, oil on canvas. This is a gorgeous painting, but it was made in preparation for a fresco, or mosaic, I suppose is the correct term. And that really opened my eyes to what a study could be, because it makes so much more sense to prepare for a specific outcome than it does to just prepare for any situation. And like that's what I was actually thinking about, right? Is that if I'm going to be drawing something in the future, right, I need to maybe do some studies for that. I don't know, it's just a different way of seeing that I hadn't considered before that I found really refreshing. And I'm sure that people who were like classically trained in art would be like slapping their head and being like, yeah, no doy, but you know, it's sometimes you learn these things at a different pace when you're a self-taught artist. But it just makes so much sense. Like, yeah, of course that's what you would do. Okay, let's shrink this down a little bit. Okay. Oh yeah. Do you guys remember when I made lentil soup like a month ago and I accidentally bought too many vegetables and I ended up having to freeze like 4 bags of celery, carrots, and onion? This week I finally finished defeating the backlog of vegetables in my freezer. The problem is that now I don't know what else I'm going to cook, because now I've been making soups and like stir fries from those stored up vegetables for so long. I'm not actually sure what I should be making next. And I'm thinking it's time to go back to the old me, which is to say that I'm going to start brining stuff more often, particularly meats. If you've never brined a meat before, it's a very simple process. It's very simple. Buy more lentils? No, thank you. I learned very quickly when I made the lentil soup that you shouldn't eat lentils for more than 2 days in a row, otherwise consequences will happen. For your digestive system, if nothing else. Besides, it wasn't the lentils that got me into that whole debacle. It was actually buying more vegetables than I needed for the lentil soup. So I guess the lesson that I should take away from this is that I should try to find my next overambitious project in terms of just food preparation. Overambitious. That doesn't seem like the right word to describe a little bit of a hunger for lentil soup, though. Right? Like, lentil soup is like the opposite of ambitious. That's like one of the hardest things to fuck up. Buy more lentils and do a little drizzle of oil and herbs on top of the soup? That is tempting. You know what? I do still have... Again, because you shouldn't eat lentils more than 2 days in a row, I do actually still have a bag of the frozen lentil soup, so maybe a little bit of drizzle of oil and some fresh herbs on the reheated stuff might not be out of the question, might not be out of the cards just yet. Okay. Okay, I think I can keep going for maybe half an hour more. So I'm going to need to figure out what I'm doing with the sky. Okay, I think I have an idea. Right, okay. We will start with a sky blue on the back. And we will merely have to make some clouds. Or actually, maybe, hang on, maybe we can do a little bit something different with this. I love this kind of blue so much. I don't know. There's something about a nice, lovely sky blue that really creates this feeling of openness. You know, reading Homestuck might have irreparably damaged my vocabulary and my sense of humor, but at least it taught me to draw some really badass clouds. Accidentally steps on a butterfly and you become a smurf in this timeline. God. Alright, there we go. I don't know. This is what you would look like if you were blue or pink. Okay. I still remember fondly, Jupiter, that one art you made of me as like, what if my object head shit was a bag of coffee beans instead of a bag of rice? I still remember Negative Pablo very fondly. I don't remember what we actually called him. Okay, and then... Actually, you know what? We could probably get away with just a little bit like... There we go. I don't know. Hang on, can I... Hang on. I got an idea real quick. Paul R. That's his name. Hey, let me check something real quick. I want to see if I can do something. Okay, filters. Effect filters. Color key. Or actually, maybe there is just straight up a gradient map one. No, I don't have to be color key. Key color type, blue. No, that's not right. That's also not right. Okay, so it's not a color key, but then what could it be? I know there's a way to make yourself blue. There has to be, right? Color correction, here we go. Color multiply, here we go. There we go. This is what I would look like if I were blue. Alright, let's get that junk out of here. Pabloos. Yeah. Pabloos is a name from the timeline from when I became a really successful saxophone artist, rather than a visual artist. Okay, and then we'll have the sun back here, but it will be covered up by the clouds. There we go. Being a saxophone artist that's painted blue would be pretty sweet. Goes kind of hard, I shan't lie. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. We add another layer on top of the normal line art layer. And we're going to make it so that Tool and Rice Beast are a little bit bluer than usual to show that they're off in the distance. And then we'll mess around with their... So hang on. Tonal correction, gradient map. Sort of like this. This happens in Disney's Soul, kinda. Do you guys remember? Okay, I only know about this game because a live streamer that I used to watch frequently played it one time. Do you remember that Dreams platform that they introduced for the PlayStation? I don't think it was a PlayStation 5. I think this was still during the PS4 lifetime. Hang on, Dreams PlayStation. Yes, this thing. The 2020 sandbox thing. Okay, hang on. Artstream. Here we go. Artstream. Media Molecules creation Artstream follows a former jazz musician Art as he dreams about his life, past and present, and realizes he needs to make amends with his fellow bandmates. The journey takes him through a series of dreamlike situations involving him and a whole cast of wonderful fantasy characters, such as Debug, a helpful little robot with an electric personality, and Francis, a hammer-wielding teddy bear. But yeah, I remember that one, and I think that's what... I feel like you could make that happen for that guy. Yeah, I'll make these two just a little bit bluer than usual, and then I'll slap a little bit of a, maybe like this kind of color on them for their line art. Maybe a little lighter. Just a tiny bit lighter. Not much. And yeah, what I could also do is also introduce just a tiny bit of... Hang on. There we go. A tiny bit of light to them in the other layer. Actually, come to think of it, okay, that song was from a collection that I bought a long time ago from the Silent Hill series. Let me check something real quick. So I know that the first Resident Evil PC port was on GOG.com. Is there? Hang on, Silent Hill 1. No, there is one for Silent Hill 4, The Room, but that is the only one. Dang it. I was kind of hoping I could dabble in some Silent Hill 1 shit. If you were in a horror game, what kind of game would it be and what would it be about? It would definitely be very... I do think... Okay, so Pabs as a character specifically, I do think he would be a good fit in a game about, like... with a meta-narrative, so to speak. Kind of House of Leaves-ish, kind of... And I know this is very old hat by this point. Kind of Doki Doki Literature Club, where a lot of the horror from it comes from the fact that the characters in the game are aware that it is a game. Like, for example, the fact that I have like Toon Force properties. That is actually kind of horrific, right? I feel like that's horrific. You could make that into something horrifying. RPG Maker is calling your name. It's gonna need to call a little bit harder. It's gonna need to wait. Myoshi became a Doom. What? That would be so sick as a concept, actually. But yeah, like for example, right? I have had this dialogue kicking around in my head, right? Where... Okay, let me actually sketch this out real quick. Where there's two characters. Actually, let me make this an entirely different layer. So there are two characters. Character A and character B. So character A is explaining to character B just a few... Like, the character A is very clearly unhinged and losing their mind a little bit. They're definitely undergoing, like, the kind of very typical... What do you call, like, Call of Cthulhu brain destruction deterioration treatment. Their rebel in reality is decreasing. And as B tries to talk back to A is like, okay, well, listen, if I'm full of shit, have you noticed how even though there's two of us talking, only one person is actually saying anything? And it cuts back to like a computer monitor with a drawing program like CSP pulled up, where you can actually see the text in the box being edited in real time. I guess you could also technically make this into a person writing with ink. And the whole thing is like only two people are talking, but only one person is saying anything. That's like a reference to the fact that most comic artists, this wouldn't actually fly for a comic author that has like a co-writer. But it's basically saying it's like an existential horror in that even though there are two separate entities, there's only one way that it could play out. What their words are and what they're saying isn't their own volition. Even this argument is a sort of farce to kind of carry out whatever story the person who wants to tell the story wants to tell. But yeah, that was my idea of like a horror story. And I just think I would be a decent fit in that, just because I'm a very silly, funny, charming cartoon person, and I feel like that would fuck somebody up. Just like me suddenly saying the world is a fabrication. I don't know. I feel like that'd be interesting in its own ways. But yeah, if I wasn't a horror story, that's probably the kind of horror story I would be in. One where they realize that if they aren't funny, they don't have a reason to keep existing. I'm sure I'll change my mind at some point, but I kind of figured mine would be a third-person survival horror game with an abandoned space station with Jupiter on comms as a potentially unreliable ally to the player character. That would be awesome. Actually, yeah, you know what? I changed my mind from all that other bullshit. I want to be like a chaser character in a mascot horror game. I want to like be the creepy thing that like pursues people. I feel like I have the charm for it. I have a lot of teeth and I don't run very fast, but I am very strong. Or actually, I'm not that strong, but I am very persistent. No, not Flap's Playhouse. That's right, we're doing Garden of Pab. Five Nights at Rises is back on! I hadn't really considered that, like, when you said what kind of... If you were in a horror game, what kind of character would you be? I hadn't considered that I could just be a side character. That actually suits me much better. You play as Tool and you find out that this is how they view the world all the time. Huh. What's with this trail of uncooked rice? Is that an abandoned open bag of rice? Did vermin get in? Ah! Headless guy at the end of the hall! God. Yeah, no. I do feel like Tool does view me as a sort of... Like, let's not mince words. Tool's ultimate goal in life is to antagonize me a little bit. That's fine. That's up to them. That's up to them how do they want to spend their life. I just need to make sure that they want to spend their life that way. That's where my obligations start and end. My goat would never behead someone. I think I'm the one who's supposed to be beheaded here, my friends. I think the implication is that my rice went bad and now my headless body is just running around. Which, to be fair, I don't know what would happen if my rice went bad. No matter what I do, it always seems to just stay pretty fresh. Nice and dry. I usually sweat out any moisture. That reminds me of this one time. So I can switch between rice form and human form, right? One time I ended up asking... somebody asked me what happens if I because like my head becomes, because my head in my rice form becomes presumably my head in my human form, right? Somebody asked me one time what would happen if I removed my head and then went and tried to transform into a human. Well, I did that, and I don't remember what happened exactly afterwards, but I woke up with the sun over my head, yelling at me to never do that again or they wouldn't bring me back next time. So you know what? Maybe I shouldn't fuck around with that too much. BRB Googling how to spoil rice. Well, generally you can give me a lap pillow, run your fingers through my non-existent hair, and give me affirmations. Oh, okay, you mean how like rice can go rotten. Okay. Representative of how my goat is always fresh as fuck. That's right. Now, see, I imagine the perfect main character situation for you would just be a chill as fuck animated sitcom that changes genres or time periods on occasion for the bit. I do have that kind of Scooby-Doo special movie charm to me, I do think. Okay, right. I remember now what I wanted to do. Okay, wait, hang on. There's a couple of things I need to do here, actually. First of all, I need to find a texture that I normally use for the sun. Also, wait, hang on. Jackie is asking me for something really awesome, and I need to go help her with that. Shouldn't take too long. The season's finale gotta be the Chinese Emperor's right-hand man scenario. God, I have to figure out how to get out of my position as the court's most trusted vizier because I gotta clock in next year. Because I gotta clock in next week. Okay. There we go. I'm guessing she wants to make a V-Roid version of the baseball maid fit. I do feel like that's probably what she wants to do, but I will let her cook in peace. I shall not make presumptions upon it. I forgot that I had this. I don't know why I opened that. My bad. I think I think you'd have it be a little bit similar, but I suppose Jupiter on comms would be a little bit like MGS codec calls. Why are we talking about a random video game right now, brother? I am being haunted. Oh yeah. Remember when before I gave Tool huge eyes? Little beady-eyed freak. They've come such a long way. Right, I was looking for the sun's texture. God, that would be really funny. I do feel like there is a strong charm. Eyes dilating like a cat. Make her eyes even bigger. Maybe someday. You know what? If she promises not to stab me for at least 3 weeks, I'll consider it. Extra huge eyes are a privilege, not a right. They're already big enough. Also, I'm pretty sure she's the one who controls how big her eyes are. Big enough to fly with. That's why they call them flying saucers, brother. Oh god, that's such a disturbing image, actually. The idea of Tool using their eyes to kind of flap them like wings and achieve some manner of flight. A little bit unpleasant, I shan't lie. Alright, hang on, I got an idea. So maybe instead of messing around with blending modes, maybe I can just make this part less... Okay, yeah. Eye wings. So that reminds me of a certain butterfly. Oh yeah, that is true. There are those butterflies that look like they have eyes on the back of their head in there. Oh shit. Okay. So I had this raster layer of Patron with the line art, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe it'd look better if I took it off. And I was right, but oh, oh, I'm having trouble breathing. Oh my god. Okay. Melted popsicle sun. I am almost certain I made that for the auction. Right, no, I remember that. I did make that for the auction. Hang on. Hey, do you want to see something funny? Removes their own line art. And they get real close to me and whisper, I can do that to you at any time. Remember that. That... Hey... Wasn't there a Tool popsicle or was that a drink? That was a float. So we have the Sun popsicle, which... God, that looks more wretched than I remember drawing it. Ugh. Kind of looks a little bit like a mooncake. But yeah, no, Tool had like this very fun little float drink with ice cream and whipped cream and gummies of all kinds. I could still fuck this up. I made a mistake making Tool's drink look so tasty. They're still holding it over my head. Went too hard, I fear. I do feel like I need to eventually organize some event with the same scale and like pomp and circumstance of the affiliate send off, because each year that passes without me doing something like that or trying to at least do another large scale like, okay, as a creative, right, you don't need to feel pressure to make things, right? And that is the thing, that as a creative you just want to outdo yourself. The problem is I went so hard on the affiliate send off. I don't know if I can ever do that again. I feel like I broke the mold with that one. I need to keep gambling with what I do. The original Tool glass of water had a potential as being one of those drinks with clear jelly cubes mimicking ice, but I don't think you can beat some Pabst art. Tool drink of water. I do think like if we opened a cafe, that or like a boba shop, I think that might be the way to go. You know, if you some of those like coconut jellies. You have to blow yourself up twice in one stream. I mean, I only blew myself up. Technically, I didn't blow myself up during the auction. I blew myself up in the epilogue of the auction. And also the when I debuted my 2.0 model. I blew myself up a lot, huh? Despite the fact that I want to plan to act like I don't know nobody. Well, that's life, I guess. Also, I forgot to shade the tassels on the balloon. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. So we do have to do the inverse of blowing up. Is that what an implosion is? I feel like implosion still implies explosion, though. Like something's absence is so pronounced that it's still, you know, when the absence of something is so profound, it kind of makes a hole in the shape of that thing, such that you can still recognize it as being absent. That is worth looking into, though. What would be the ideological opposite of explosions? I guess creation, but I do that basically every other stream. We can send you to the Arctic and get so cold that you shatter. I have been meaning to try my luck against a penguin one of these days. You know, I do remember, I do want to... I do think, like, it's not a responsible dream or a particularly noble one, but I do want to try holding a penguin one day. You know, I just want to see what it's like. I just like to feel the texture. Speaking of texture, what's going on back there? Hang on. Oh wait, I've got an idea. Oh, that is bizarre. Hang on. Related to this, you can raise a penguin from an egg. Creation. That is true. Opposite of an explosion, my friend, is a humble vacuum cleaner. Huh. You know what? That is true, because an explosion blows things out, but I guess the vacuum cleaner sucks things in. So it is the... You know, if we were doing some Grecian-style Socratic dialogue, right? I do think that would be the correct answer. Comes out looking like an Oreo-flavored rice piece somehow, pulling into question nature versus nurture. I feel like if it comes out looking like an Oreo rice piece, it is going to be a very strong argument in favor of nurture. Because ain't no way a penguin looks like that normally. Okay, I've got a quick idea on how we can wrap this up. So let's add a couple of balloons. Okay, is this a sky layer? Yes, it is. Okay. And let's actually use the color of the line art for Tool and Rice Piece back here. Oh yeah, I didn't actually finish shading the tassels on the balloons. Let me go back and finish that. Oh, that looks much better. Okay, yeah. Let's do that. Okay, and then like this. Oh my, okay. So I actually forgot part of the shading over here. But that doesn't look very good though. Yeah, maybe I can get away with some sophistry in that section. Okay, so far for the inverses of explosions, we have vacuum cleaners, which I'm a big fan of. We have the creation of something, which makes sense as well. We have... what else? I somehow believe in like the possible existence of a white hole, right? So everybody knows what a black hole is, right? So a white hole is a proposed counter existence to a black hole where instead of sucking everything in infinitely, it spits things out infinitely. So maybe something with that. But then the thing is that then that's the opposite of a black hole. That's not like the opposite of an explosion. It's not congruent with the idea we've proposed. Gonna have to have a think on that. I do think that in addition to... I do think like the thing is that maybe I didn't want... So like the thing is, right, for the affiliate send-off, maybe it's not so much that I had like a better drive or stronger will for creation back in those days. Maybe I just hated having to run ads on my channel that much. Making a face thinking about how the conversation was previously about Christmas cake. The white hole that spits out things constantly is just my mouth speaking facts and truth. Correct! 100 emoji, fire emoji, checkmark emoji. True. Verified by real Ecuadorian patriots. Okay, that line art is going to need to be much thinner. That's much better. Okay, and then let's do this, and also this, and also this. Perfect. Now here's the plan. We're gonna grab this and put it in a folder. And then we're going to make another one. And this one, instead of being red, will be blue. If I can figure out... Okay, there we go. That's blue. That's a pretty good approximation of a blue. Okay, then we're going to make another one down here. We don't want to make too many of these, because then it'll clog up the background a bit much, and I'm not a fan of that. 30 on 30. Okay, and we also need yellow. So that's going to be maybe... Oh, that's red. That's red. That's good. Okay. Environmental terrorist tabs art. That's true. You're not supposed to do this because it can really fuck up the environment to release balloons on this scale. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, I decided to do this just because of the fact that Rice Piece is also mimicking a balloon. So I was like, okay, that's not going to make sense if I don't add more balloons in the background. You know what? Actually, let me put a couple more kind of flying in V formation with Rice Piece here. Rice Piece is getting raptured. No, my mascot! God, I don't know, the concept of balloons flying in V formation with Rice Piece is so charming. There we go. Okay, and then over here. There we go. What does it say about me that my beast is getting recalled, but not me? Probably that I should have kept going to church a little bit more than I have. Well, I don't know. Maybe Rice Piece is rising to the sky for a different reason. For a different, more... for a different, what do you call it? Secular reason. Maybe he just decided to do that one day. But yeah, I think we've got it done pretty much. I'm gonna post this one tomorrow though, because, you know, we're still on the 30th. It's not the first just yet. But yeah, I think we can close things out for today. Is anybody streaming tonight? Stream tonight, Queen? Stream tonight? Oh shit, Zed is playing Clover Pit. Let's go say hi. Alright, yeah, no, happy October tomorrow. I hope the month brings a lot of good things for everybody. I hope it has a lot of opportunities for growth and fun times. And yeah, take care. You could be in Silent Hill F. Yeah, it's gotta be happy Hawktobber, everybody. All right, timing Ryan out. Ryan's honor has been recalled from the previous pinned comment. Hinako surely wouldn't remind more Rice. That's true. Ryan is not being raptured today. Your honor has been undone, I fear. My apologies, good sir. Good day. I said good day.